Kakadosh Boker Or, Masechet Makkot, Daf Gimel Amud Aleph 23a1. We were just mentioning in the previous Mishnah, how do you give the lashes? How do you give the Malkut? And then the last thing also was that we mentioned was, right, that if they did their necessities, which means nitkalkel, so then they're going to become exempt from the rest of it. So the Gemara is going to go back on the beginning of the Mishnah. And the Gemara is going to say, "My tama." What's the reasoning why? Right? They come and they tie the hands of the one that's getting the lashes to the amud. Yeah. Why do they tie him up? So, and then the Chazan Knesset comes, tears his clothing. So he says, "Mishum v'nikla." What does that mean? Right? To do with the chiyuv of the obligation of malkut, it says, "Arba'im yakenu v'niklach yichalenecha." So therefore, you have to be malkeoto in a disgraceful manner, meaning that he has to be disgraced. He has to feel that he's not being given kavod. Right? He has to feel that he's being disgraced. Okay, fine. Amar Rav Sheshat, right? Mishum Bilazar ben Azariah. So says Rav Sheshat in the name of Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. Minayin l'ritzua shehi shel egel. What do we say? We said that the ritzua is going to be from an egel. How do we know that the ritzua is going to be made from the egel? Meaning, when you hit him, that I don't know what you want to call it exactly, right? This whip is going to be made out of an egel. Why? So he says, "Dichtiv," it's written, "Arba'im yakenu v'samich lei lo tachsom shor bedisho." Yeah, Gav Gimel Amud Aleph. Yeah. So therefore, it says you have to give him 40 lashes. Yeah, and then what happens is, right? Yeah, he comes and he says, "Lo tachsom shor bedisho," which means the fact that you have a close proximity, the smichut of the two different psukim, they're coming telling you that it has to be out of an egel. Fine. So he comes and he says, right? That's how we learn that it's going to be from an egel. B'marav sheshat mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Says Rabbi Sheshat in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Minayin levama shenafla lifnei mukashchin shen chosmin ota. Imagine you have miskena, right? You have a yevama. She falls in front of a mukashchin, which means that basically he's got all blemishes. So how do we know that shen chosmin ota, that we don't stop her, right? Berezifa. But rather we accept it, and therefore we basically force the guy to come and to do chalitza. So dichtiv lo tachsom shol bedisho, usamich le ki yeshu achim yachtav, right, umetachamem ubeno lo yevama yevo levi bema. Meaning the proximity between lo tachsom shol bedisho and the proximity of yibum, the same thing. Meaning we're not going to come, right, and we're not going to come and we're not going to stop her or to muzzle her, right? If she's going to come and say, "Listen, I just don't want to get married to him," we accept it. And therefore, the fact we accept it, we say, "No, we're going to force him to do chalitza and not the yibum." Another drasha, Amar Rav Sheshat Mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, says the Rav Sheshat name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Kol ha'mevazeh et ha'moadim. The person is going to be mevazeh the moadim. Yeah, so here it says it's actually Chol HaMoed. Okay, so he says over here, he's saying it's because of the Mvazeh, that it wasn't Yom Tov, because if it's Yom Tov, it's some Chalel, right, which is Chilul Yom Tov. Here it says Mvazeh, so it's disgracing the Chol HaMoed. So he says, Ki'ilu oved avodat kochavim, it's Ki'ilu oved avodat zarah. Dichtiv, it says in a pasuk, Elohem Masecha lo ta'aseh lach, v'samich lei, and immediately afterwards it says, Chag HaMatzot tishmon, right, so you're going to watch over the Chag HaMatzot. Okay, so he comes and he says, right, what is the smichut between Elohim Masechet Olot Selach and Chag HaMatzot Tishmor? We just read this on Pesach, because on Pesach, right, we came and we spoke about on Pesach the concept of Parashat Mishpatim, and there we went and we said Elohim Masechet Olot Selach, and then we went and we said not Mishpatim, it was Kitisa, right, and then we said the Chag HaMatzot Tishmor. So he comes and he says, this is what we said because of the close proximity between them. Okay? ואמר רב ששת, משום רבי אלעזר בן עזריה. says רב ששת, אני אומר רבי אלעזר בן עזריה, כל המספר לשון הרע וכל המקבל לשון הרע. Right? Anybody that's going to come and speak Lashon Hara, or he's going to accept Lashon Hara. V'chol ha'meid edu sheker, or anybody that's going to be meid edu sheker, ra'ui lashlicho laklavim. It's fitting to throw him to the dogs. He says, why? Tichtivu v'asar b'sadeh telefa lo tochelu, lakelev tashlichun oto. You have to throw him to the dogs. V'samichle, and immediately, what is it's written? Right? The pasuk afterwards. Lo tisa shem hashav. So kari benami lo tasi. What does that mean? Lotasi means al tesaper lachavercha shem hashav, which is basically the shonura, right? That means he doesn't mean only to carry. It means don't come and testify falsely, right? Because it says al teida du cheker. So basically, again, since you have the smichut, so therefore you're going to come and you're going to throw it to the dogs. So anybody that speaks lashon hara, you throw him to the dogs, right? If you remember, I told you somebody said that that's explanation in the pasuk when it says to do with the dogs, that it says v'chol bnei Yisrael lo yecheratz kelev. It says, why is it that for Bnei Israel, right, it wasn't lo yecheratz kelev, that the kelev didn't come, right, and he didn't show his lishono, which is basically shouldn't have said lishono. He says it's lishono. You put the psik in the wrong place. Meaning, why is it ulchol bnei Yisrael lo yecheratz? Why is it that the dogs didn't come and start barking? He says because of Lashono. Because since we were careful of not speaking Lashon Hara in Mitzrayim, so therefore in that merit, that's why L'chol bnei Yisrael lo yecheratz. Meaning we learn, the way that we usually read it is, L'chol bnei Yisrael lo yecheratz kelev Lashono. That for all of bnei Yisrael, the dogs didn't come and they didn't bark. What does it say Lashono? Lashono is in the barking. Right? The barking is not in the tongue, the barking. He says, no, you're supposed to read L'chol bnei Yisrael lo yecheratz, comma. Pasik. Lashono, that's the reason why. Right? It's not. It wasn't what the dog did. It was the reason why. So again, this is based upon this Gemara. But the Gemara says anybody that's going to come and he's going to speak lashon hara, you're supposed to throw him to the dogs. Yeah, which means that he's not supposed to be zochet to kevura. Fine. The two dots. So the two dots says, remember that on this ritzua of the egel, which is on this whip, you're going to have two ritzuot going. So Tana, what do you mean? What do we learn? It was of the chamor, meaning the other two ritzuot were from a chamor. It wasn't of, right, the egel. Okay, so according to this, it wasn't written in the Mishnah, obviously. Just like the Gilila came and he was doresh, right, by in front of Rav Chasta, Yada shor koneu b'hamor evus be'alav. Israel lo yada, ami lo itbonan. When do we say this? Yada shor koneu v'hamor evus be'alav. Israel lo yada, ami lo itbonan. It's not Tisha B'Av.
זה לא הטון של תשעה באב, זה תשעה באב. זה כן טון של תשעה באב. לא היית פה בתשעה באב, רואה.
Shabbat Chazon. During the 3 weeks, huh? Exactly. Yes. During the 3 weeks, right? During the 3 weeks, right? The Haftarah of Shabbat Chazon, Shabbat before Tisha B'Av. This is the Haftarah. I was zocheh to hear Rav Saadia Cohen. He was a very elderly gentleman from. He lived in Venezuela, but he was originally from Tetuan. And I heard him sing this Haftarah, and Pashut, he was in tears. Mutar, 100%. 100%. And shum baya בכלל, לא תורה שבכתב.
הוא לא מביא את עצמו לבכי.
ודאי, זה בכי של תשובה. מותר לעשות זה, זה ודאי. Here, basically, what is we saying? Where the reason why we're crying is we're trying to say that the shor, he knows his creator. He says the hamor, he knows where's the evus be'alav. He knows where's the trough, right? Where the water is of his owners. Israel, right? Lo yada. Bnei Yisrael didn't know. Meaning we're worse than the shor and the hamor. Right? Ami, my nation, They didn't ponder. They didn't think. I heard him, mamash, crying like a baby in this haftarah. 100%. Amara Kadosh Baruch Hu, says Kadosh Baruch Hu, Yavo mishek makir evus be'alav, v'ipara mimi she'eno makir evus be'alav. He says, you know what's going to happen? He says it's going to come the hamor that he knows, he recognizes who's his master, and he's going to take retribution from the one that does not know who his master is. And therefore, that's why we put from the hamor right onto this whip when we're giving the whip right to the person. Yeah, it's a powerful statement. It's a mamash. You understand? Everything that we do is obviously that during that time, right, for us to recognize, right, what we did, our actions. Yada tefach. So he says like this. He says yada is going to be tefach. Yeah, what does that mean? Yada shel retzua is going to be tefach, and the rosha is going to go until the stomach. So Amar Abaye comes and he says, Shema mina, we learn from here. Kol chad v'chad lefum gabe avdinale. Which means that from this Mishnah, we're going to see that every single person receiving lashes, they're going to give him the lashes with the ritzuah, which is fitting to the size. Because if it has to go, right, according to that 1/3 is going to go to his stomach, so what happens if you have a person that's very big or very small, right? So that means each one is going to get it. So Elmaleh Rava, so he says, Rava, he says what? But you're not going to have a whole bunch? What's going on? Elmaleh Rava, but rather Rava comes and he says, Avketa itli. He says it's a kesher aniva that it had. So kibaye miktarbe, kibaye merapebe. What does that mean? They had, like on a regular belt also, you have this, right? Which means they had a kesher here. And they're able to make it longer and shorter. So according to what they needed, they were able to make it longer and shorter. It's not that they needed 20 different types of whips, right? No, they had one whip, and that one they were able to make it longer or shorter. Then it says in the 2 dots, Malkinoto, they used to give him lashes. So they used to give him 1/3 in front of him, because that's what he said, it was 1/3 in front, and 2/3 behind him. Menanamile, how do we know these words? So Rav Kana says, the Pasuk says, Vipilo השופט ויקהו לפניו, כדי רישתו במספר. רישה אחת מלפניו, ושתי רישיות מאחריו. So he says, since it says ויקהו לפניו, and then it says רישתו במספר, so for one risha, you have to do it לפניו. That's 1/3, right? 1/3 in the front. And then it says שתי רישיות, which is 2/3, you're going to do it in the back. Now he says, En malkinoto, they're not going to come, right, and give him lashes, lo omer yoshev, not standing and not sitting in a muteh, but rather leaning over. So he says, Amano chasta amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rav Chassan Nim Yochanan, minan l'ritzua shehi muchpelet. How do we know that the ritzua is going to be folded? It's going to be like doubled. He says, Shneimar, but it says the pasuk v'ipilo. V'ipilo is like, it's like ki'ilu that you're reading a v'chpilo, which means that it has to be kefula. So says the Gemara, v'hami baile legufe. He says, 1 second, v'pilo is not extra, meaning sometimes when you have a word that's extra, so you could come and you could learn, right, different things from it. Here it's not extra. So if it's not going to be extra, so therefore, how do you know that it means that it has to be doubled? So he says, if so, lichtov kra, the pasuk should say, yatehu. What does it mean, hipilo? Right? He says, milashon hipil. So shema mina, he comes to teach you, tarte, 2 different dinim. Number 1, that you have to be mateh the loke, right? Just like the pasuk says. And number 2, also the fact that you change the lashon, you have to be lachpil, right? Lichpol eta retzua. You have to make it double. Okay? Hamakeh makeh biyado. Right? Remember, we said that when a person comes and he's going to hit with the lashes, yeah, you're checking it up how you do it. Yeah, he says when your person comes and he hits with the lashes, he's going to hit with one hand. Bechol kocho, one hand. So Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita, En mamidin chazanim ela chasire koach vitere madah. You know who are the people? Right? Who are the people that give the lashes? So it's not going to be the very, very strong biryonim, the big machos. It's not what they do. Yeah, but who do they take? They take people that are chalash, but that are chachamim. Yeah, which means bal koach benoni, a person that's mid size. Yeah, he says Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Afilu chasidei madav itere koach. Says no, right? Why? You could even put a chazan that he's going to be over there, burna ma'aretz, right? And that they're strong, right? Well, why? You can put whoever you want there, basically. Okay. He comes down and he says, right, like this. Amar Rava. Rava says, it's much more logical to say like Rabbi Yehuda, that they used to put people that weren't smart, but they were very strong. Tichtiv, as it says in Pasuk, lo Yosif. You're not supposed to add on onto the Makkot. Pen Yosif, because maybe you're going to do it. He says, if you're going to say that the people that they're Chasidei Mada, which means that they're lacking wisdom, so therefore that's why you have to give them a warning. But if you're going to tell me Yitinei Mada, that they're very, very smart, since when do you have to give a warning to somebody that's smart? He says he knows. So why do you have to give him a warning? So obviously we're talking about that it was the opposite. It was like Rabbi Yehuda, that you could put somebody that's not smart, but that he's very strong, right? And you could put him there. V'Rabbanan. So according to Rabbanan, so why do you have it then? The rabbis, why did they say then that we're talking about you're going to take somebody that he's chalash but smart? Why do you need to give him a warning then? So according to Rabbanan, many times when you give a person, right, musar about the zrizut, right, you only give it to somebody that's already quick. It's a bracha levatala sometimes to come and start giving somebody that's already a thing. So for him, you're going to give him, right, a little bit quick, right? Fine. Next, that you're only going to quicken somebody that's already quick. So he says like this. Tana kishu magbia. So he comes and he says like this. Ma? So that's why you're going to tell Dafka Chacham, you're going to give him the warning. We asked if he's a Chacham, why do you have to warn him? He says, no, because we're always going to be mizarez, the people that are already zrizim. Okay? Tana. Yeah, we learned in our Braita. Keshu magbia. Magbia b'shtei yadav. When he picks up his hands, he's picking up both hands. U'chshu makeh, but when he's going to give the makah, makeh b'yado achat. He's going to give with one hand. Meaning he's able to pick up with two hands. But then when he gives the whip, one hand. He doesn't use two. One hand. Who? Lo havanti. The one that's giving the Makkot. Yeah? We're talking about, no, but we said that a person hits. No, but that's what he said. A person hits stronger with one hand than two hands. One hand? Yeah. One. So he says, Ki hechi dilete midideh. So that way the maket tavo mimenu bechol kocho, with all of his strength. Yeah, that is going to come with all his strength. Okay? Fine. Next. Hakore kore. So remember, beside the person that's giving the lashes, there's somebody there that he gives makot. He gives, there's somebody there that he's reading out the psukim. Hakore. So he says like this. Tanu Rabbana, we learned in a Braita. Hagadol sheb dayanim kore. The head of the dayanim, he's going to be reading the psukim. Hasheni moneh. The second dayan, which is greatest, he's counting the makot. Hashlishi, and the third one, he says hakeu. Hit him. Give it to him again. Yeah? Bizman shamakeh merubeh. Yeah, he comes and he says, during the time when, right, when they're going to give him a whole bunch of malkut. Yeah, so for example, let's say all the 39 lashes. So the gadol sheb dayanim ma'arich. It takes a very long time. Why? Right? Because in order to finish the psukim with the malkut, meaning he was saying psukim. So you have to calculate, right, how to do the psukim according to the amount of the lashes. So if he's going to get 39 lashes, you have to go very, very slow. But if it's going to be bizman shamakam muetet, but let's say he only gets 20 lashes, 15 lashes, so then he has to be mekatzer. He has to quicken up the psukim because he has to finish by the time they finish. Yeah. So says the Gemara, 1 second. I thought you told us that if you finish already, you start again. Meaning finish once, start again another time. No. Mitzvah is litzamtzem. The mitzvah is to get exact. Meaning that you start and you're going to finish exactly when they finish the malkut. However, though, if you didn't have that slacha and being mitzamtzem, You go to the beginning again. So the mitzvah lechatchila is mamash to time it. You're timing it, right? And many times you could actually pay attention because many times they know how many words there are. So if you already know how many words there are and you know how many already lashes, yeah, so therefore you could time it, right? You could do that 100%. But he says, but if you weren't able to time it, you start from the beginning again. So Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita, right? It says that right? So he says makaraba. Well, what does it mean? Enli. Ela makaraba. Makam muetet minayin. When it said in the Torah, you're only supposed to give him the 39 lashes because maybe you're going to add on a makaraba. And you know that lo yosif, you're not allowed to add on. So 1 second, I'm only not allowed to add on a makaraba, but makam muetet amalatu. Tamuloma lo yosif. When it says the words lo yosif comes and it comes in to teach you, you're not allowed to add on anything. Even one makkah, even if it wasn't a strong one, doesn't matter what. You have an avirah, you're not allowed to add on. Okay? Nekuda. Fine? Nitkalkel. Yeah, what is nitkalkel? He did his necessities on himself. Right? And then we brought down whether it's going to be that he's going to become patur, whether it's number 1 or number 2. And then Rabbi Yehuda wanted to differentiate between a man and a woman. So Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita. Echad ha'ish ve'echad ha'isha berei. Right? Velo b'mayim. These are the words that Rabbi mean. Meaning, according to Shitat Rabbi Meir, whether it's a man or a woman, they have to make excrement in order to become exempt from the Malkut. Okay, that's the Shita of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says no. The man, you're right, is going to be excrement. But the woman, even if it's going to be urine, right, that's what's going to happen. What does that mean? That means when they're hitting them, if it comes out that they weren't able to control themselves, so therefore they become patur. Chachamim come and they say, whether a man or a woman, ben berei ben b'mayim. Doesn't matter whether it's number 1 or number 2, right? It's going to be patur. So says the Gemara, ve'atanya we learned, Yehuda says, echad ha'ish ve'echad ha'isha berei, that it has to be, right, whether it's a man or a woman, with rei. So this is a stira, which we just learned, because we learned in Shitat Rabbi Yehuda that the isha is also going to be exempt with urine, right, with water. So Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak says Rav Nachman Yitzchak, Shnehem Shavin Berei, which means the din is shaveh by rei. But be'emet, there is a chiluk between them to do that. The woman is going to be ptura and the man is going to be chayav, right, in such a scenario. Yeah, Amar Shemuel says Shemuel kaftu. What happens if they come and they tie them up, right? Veratz mi bedin. So imagine they tied him up, right? And before, all of a sudden, he runs away. A fugitive. Yeah, right before we were going to start shiur, he runs away. So what happens? He's going to be patur min malkut. I don't have to give you lashes. Baruch Hashem. That's why I said it. Yeah. He says, Meitvei, so we're going to ask the following question. Kala, right? If a person comes and he has the excrement, ben barishona, ben bashniya, if it's going to happen between the makari shona and the makari shona, potrinoto. Which one? Yes, makari shona, right? And the second time. Okay? So he comes and he says, potrinoto. Nifseka retzua. Right? Also, what happens if it tears? Right? So bishniya potrinoto. Barishona and potrinoto. Why? Because the first time around, he only got 1 lashes. So don't speak. It's not enough. So he says, Amai, why? Lavi kirat, it's like running. Just like right now you came and you said that if he runs away, he's going to be patur. So do the same thing over here. So answers the Gemara, Hatam, right over there, rats. The rats is already the bizayon. It's already v'niklach Hechal enecha. He says, Hacha, lo rats. Here there was nothing. It just broke. So if it breaks, it's nothing. Yeah, you want to open up the Gemara? One could give me a mudalef, yeah? Tanu Rabbanan. Yeah, we learned in a Braita. Amduhu l'chshilke. Right? If right now, right, yikle, what happens if they come and they evaluate him? And they evaluated him that if they're going to start giving him lashes, immediately he's going to come and he's going to do his necessities. So, they come and they make him patur legamre. Which one? If right now they evaluate him, that if they're going to start giving him lashes, he's going to immediately do excrement. So therefore they come and they say, patur. Yeah, no, last time we said if he actually did excrement. Here we're saying if they already evaluate him, that he will do excrement. That's already enough. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Right, yikle, malkinoto. However, though, if they only evaluated him that only when he got in the finishing, when he finishes the malkut, then he'll come in and do his necessities, then they do give him lashes. Below, then not only that, elafilu kalabat even if he comes and he does it at the beginning before the malkut, malkinoto, they still will do it. Shneimar says in the pasuk, veikau v'nikla. What does that mean? Right? He comes and he says, we're charging the neshama, not the phones. So he comes and he says, Shneimar, vikau v'nikla. Right? What does that mean? You're going to come, right? And he's going to come, right? And listen. So he says, vikau v'nikla. What does that mean? We're talking about here, davka b'kugon, that he was nikla during, meaning he became disgraced during the time of the malkut. But not beforehand. So therefore, that's why he's not going to be patur. Fine. Mishnah, the bottom of Kav Gimel Amud Aleph. Kol chayve kritut shelaku. So the Mishnah says on the bottom of 23a, on the bottom, it says any chayve kritut that they get lashes, nifteru yede kritatan. Remember that there were a lot of cases of the karets that they still get lashes. So if it is that they do get the lashes, now since they got the lashes in this world, they become patur from the karet in the next world. Makes sense, no? Meaning that they come, they give them the lashes, that's it. So a person that comes and he does all these avirot, he's going to become patur. Okay, shneimar. Which one? Yeah, he's patur.
That's the goal. That's the goal of the
100%. 100%. Which one? He's patur from karet. Meaning he becomes exempt from the karet. Why? Because they already give it to him, right? They give him the lashes. Yeah. So if you remember, this had to do with a lot of other cases. That's why he was like, whether the sister, the this, and that, a lot of arayot and everything. The second that instead of the karet, he gets lashes, boom. So he says like this, right?
More than 7 years.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Because now that's it. He's patur from karet. He already got lashes. Which one? Karet is, well, whether it's going to be yuter chamur or not, the malkut was given in order to exempt from the karet. Meaning the second that a person comes and he gets the malkut, so therefore he becomes exempt from the karet. Yeah. So he comes and he says like this. He comes and he says, Sheleman. How do we know? V'nikra achicha le'enecha. He says, what does that mean? Shelaka areu ke'achicha. The second that he comes and he gets the lashes, he's your brother. Yeah, the second he gets it, he's your brother. That's the words of Rabbi Gamliel. Says Rabbi Gamliel, listen to this. If a person comes and he does an avirah, and the punishment of the avirah is going to be karet. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and he's notel nafsho alea. He takes away his neshama. All the more so that he's going to get even more chayim, right, in the zechut of doing mitzvot. Meaning a person wants to live, do more mitzvot. Because you see the midat tova is always better than midat puranut. So if a midat puranut, a person's going to come and do an avirah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take away his life. Because that's karet. Right? So he says, all the more so, right, in such a case, if a person is going to come, he says, that's a Mishnah Kiddushin. Person does a mitzvah, they're going to do good to him. He's going to get long life in this world. Rabbi Shimon says, you actually learn it from the actual pasuk. Because it says, Shneimar, v'nichretu ha'nefashot ha'osot, mikerav amam. And it says also, right, Kav Gimel Amud Bet, 23b, so he says, Kol Yoshev, right? So therefore, what's the coming? So from the same pasuk, it's coming and telling you, if a person comes and he does these things, these abominations, what's going to happen? He's going to get cut off. So if he comes and he's going to be shomer on the Torah mitzvot, he's going to be chai bahem. He's going to come and he's going to live. Exactly. He gets long life. Yeah? A person wants a long life pill, Torah mitzvot. Yeah? So he says, Velo, not only that, Hakol Yoshev Velo Avar Avera, Notnim Lo Schar Kose Mitzvah. More than that. Sometimes a person comes, right, and he doesn't do an Avera. What does that mean? He controls himself, and he doesn't do an Avera. They give him the reward, Ki'ilu, that he was Mekayem a Mitzvah. That which is an incredible concept. Like, not only that he didn't do an Avera, Ki'ilu, they give him a reward that Ki'ilu that he did a Mitzvah. Yes, meaning that the concept of not doing an Avera, that in itself also gives him long life. Meaning, because we said that if a person does an Avera, they cut off his life. That was a karet. And if a person does a mitzvah, Torah mitzvot, he's going to get long life. If he doesn't do an Avera, he also gets long life. But that's Ki'ilu that he did a mitzvah. Obviously. Exactly. 100%. 100%. That the person comes and he gets his chayim. That's why, I don't know if you ever saw, there's a sefer called Otzar Mitzvot Tzrichot Kavanot. Right? Yes. And that sefer, on a whole bunch of mitzvot, so there, it's got, even on the negative commandments. So I want to say, well, so if a person comes and they refrain from doing a negative commandment, he should have kavanah in that, because not only is it that you're refraining from a negative commandment, meaning I would say, listen, I just didn't do something bad. No. It's considered you did a mitzvah. It's considered you did a mitzvah. 100%.
Don't say it.
100%.
Exactly.
Exactly. I'm doing a mitzvah now. Because I could do an avera and it's considered I'm doing a mitzvah, even though you didn't do a mitzvah. Yeah? Fine. How do we see this also? Listen to this. Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi Omer. Says Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi. This Mishnah, by the way, is Musar. Right? We have the Musar for the day. Right? We have the Musar for the entire week in this Mishnah. He says, Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi Omer. Hareu Omer. It says in the Pasuk, Rak Chazak. Yeah? You have to strengthen yourself. To do what? Levilti achol adam. Don't eat blood. Don't drink blood. Ki adamu anafesh. Because the blood is the nefesh. So says the Gemara, I don't understand. Says the Mishnah, Umayim adam. שנפשו של אדם קצה ממנו, הפורש ממנו מקבל שכר, גזל ועריות שנפשו של אדם מתאווה להן ומחמדתן, הפורש מהן, הלכה כמה וכמה, שיזכה לו, ולדורות דורותיו, עד סוף כל הדורות. Wow. A powerful concept. He comes and he says, why does it say in the Torah, רק חזק לבלתי אכולת אדם? Strengthen yourself not to eat blood. Do I have to tell you, Ribono Shel Olam, to strengthen yourself? Dam is repulsive. It's what's another word, doctor? It's disgusting. It's a person doesn't like blood. Even if I would permit you to drink blood, you wouldn't drink blood. Yeah, okay. So you have a little bit of blood over here. Yeah, I'm gonna come and give you a cup of blood. You're gonna start drinking a cup of blood. Even if I would tell you it's permitted, you would do it. Obviously not, right? Don't give me your ideas. Yeah, no vampires here. Yeah, fine. 1 minute. So therefore, he comes and he says, if the Mishnah saying, if the Torah comes and tells you the chazak to strengthen yourself, what is that coming to teach you? He's coming to teach you that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and if a person separates, he gets a reward, because that's why he gave you a mitzvah to separate. In order to give you a reward, and gezel varayot, right? Immorality or stealing, which the person benefits from it. He enjoys it. And the neshama, not the neshama, the nefesh, right? The nefesh ba'amit, right? Comes and he wants it. He's yearning for it. So if you're going to come and you're going to separate, imagine what reward you're going to get for you, for generations of generations, until Sof Kol Adorot. Incredible concept. So he says, 1 second. So says the last part of the Mishnah, Rabbi Hanina ben Akashia Omer, V'atzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ezakot et Yisrael, Lefichach hablan ato mitzvot, Shneimar Adonai chafetz leman tzidko, Yagdil Torah v'yadil. This is, by the way, where this Mishnah is. This is the Mishnah. Some people think that the Mishnah is the end of Pirkei Avot. No, they just added it over there. Yeah, this is where the Mishnah. If somebody's ever going to ask you, where's the Mishnah? Rabbi Hanania ben Akashia Omer, Yeah, Makkot Kav Gimel Amud Bet. That's a Mishnah. Yeah, that's a Mishnah. 23b. Yeah, there are 23 in the Sanhedrin, right? Of the ones that kill. Yeah, 23. So you have 23b. Yeah.
What happens if the person likes?
Here it actually says that this is a Tana from the 4th generation of Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yudah, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and others. And this is the only place in the entire Shas that's brought down Rabbi Chanya ben Akashia, other than also a Tosefta and Shekalim. Okay, so this is Mamash. This is the place, right? If anybody ever wants to remember, this is the place of Rabbi Chanya. Yeah, fine. By the way, the famous Rambam that I always quote, right? The Rambam that if a person does one mitzvah lishma, so he gets olam haba just for one mitzvah lishma, and that's why it's lefich Rabbanan Torah mitzvot. That's on this Mishnayot. Meaning, if you look in the Pirusha Mishnayot Rambam, it's here. This is where it is. There's a famous Rambam that the Rambam says on this Mishnah. What's the explanation? Ratzak Baruch Hu lezakot et Israel, and therefore he was lefich Rabbanan Torah mitzvot. What does that mean? So he comes the Rambam and he says like this. He says the Rambam, if a person comes and he does one mitzvah lishma, he gets olam haba. One. All he needs is one. 80 years, 90 years. He does one mitzvah lishma, he gets olam haba. So why? Ma kesher? Ma kesher karet with olam haba? He gets karet and then he goes to olam haba. Ma baya? What's soter?
Everybody goes to Olam Haba, basically.
קורטים לו מחייו, ואז הוא הולך לעולם הבא, מה הבעיה? לא, זה לא... כשהוא כרת פה, הוא הולך לעולם הבא.
לא על זה אני מדבר.
אבל זה מה שאני מדבר. זה מה שאני מדבר. Which one? למה כולנו... So listen to this. So the Rambam comes and says this whole... The Shemi Chuksha doesn't help a thing. If a person says the Shemi Chuksha B'richu and then he has a kavanah that he wants to get kavod for it, it doesn't help. Right? Because the kavod takes away from the mitzvah lishma, then it's all lishma. It looks kashul. Ben Adam doesn't help saying l'shem yichud if a person has another interest involved. Yeah. So basically, are you guys listening? Yeah. Private shooting afterwards, everyone, please. Right. One more time. Right. One more time. Right. A person has to understand. Says the Rambam that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was hirba lahem Torah mitzvot. Why was hirba lahem Torah mitzvot? So it could happen that one time in your lifetime, meaning all the mitzvot that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave, was that way one time in your lifetime you did a mitzvah lishma. Because without that one mitzvah lishma, you cannot go to Olam Haba. No matter how many other thousands of mitzvot that you have, you need a mafteach. You need a mafteach. And the mafteach is what? A mitzvah lishma. So therefore, so how do you do it? So he says the reason why it was Ibala Torah mitzvot was because many times it will happen that you'll do it 100% lishma. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes it could happen that you come and you pray. And why do you pray? You're praying because your friends are there. Right? You didn't come to Shachrit. Yeah, you know you're going to have your friends and say, where were you yesterday? Were you sleeping in? Or your rabbi is going to come and give it to you in your head? Or you. So why are you coming to pray? Because you don't want that your friends are going to give you on the head. Your rabbi is going to give you on your head. That your wife doesn't think that you're as a pushtakachad, as a I don't know what avarian. So you go to shachrit because if not, the wife is going to say, "Look at this guy, right? He doesn't even." So what happens? You do that. It's going to happen that maybe one time in your life, right? All of a sudden, nobody's around. All of a sudden, the wife is on vacation, right? She needs a vacation, yeah. Or all of a sudden, something happened. And then what happens? And then all of a sudden what happens is he still does it. For that one time that he still does it, that's lishma. Exactly. So therefore the concept is that says the Rambam, that's why he says, Torah mitzvot. He gave you all the Torah mitzvot in order for the one time to be Torah lishma. Says the Gemara. Yeah. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Chalukim alav chaverav Rabbi Hanaya ben Gamliel. So he says, right, the majority of the Chochmei Ador were arguing on him, and they say that the Malkut is not going to be poter from the karet. Okay, so therefore he comes and he says, and therefore the halakha is not like him. So Amar Avada Barava, Amri Berav. So they went and they brought in the academy of the Rav Tanina. We already learned it in Mishnah once, in Megillah. Enmen Shabbat Yom Kippurim. What's the difference between Shabbat and Kippur? Ela shezeh zedono b'idei adam, v'zeh zedono b'karet. What's the difference between Shabbat and Kippur? The difference between Shabbat and Kippur is that if somebody is going to be Mechalel Shabbat, what do they get? They get Mita B'dei Shamayim, Mita B'dei Adam. What does that mean? They get killed. They get Sekilah. Yeah, they get stoned. Right? First they get thrown off a 2-story building. If they still survive, so then they get stoned. Okay? Yeah, so now he comes and he says, Zeh zedono b'dei Adam, v'zeh zedono b'karet. And one of them gets karet. What's worse, to be Mechalel Shabbat or Kippur? Shabbat. Shabbat. Yeah, which we just said. He says, yeah. So he says, now if you're going to tell me like Rabbi Chanina and Gamliel, that chayve kritut, that they get lashes, they're patur from karet, iti b'dei Adam. So both of them is b'dei Adam. Why? Because you get the lashes, and once you get the lashes, that's it. So Rav Nachman comes and he says, Hamani, who is this Rabbi Yitzchak? He says, Damar Malkut b'chayve kritut leka. According to Shtat Rabbi Yitzchak, he says chayve kritut, they don't get lashes at all. All the other Tanaim, Rabbi Shmer, Rabbi Akiva, and everything, they say that you do, right? And the halachas like them, obviously, right? But he wanted to say that they don't get lashes. The Tanya was learned in the right Rabbi Yitzchak Omer, chayve kritut bichlal hayu. Chayve kritut were in all the general rules here. So why did he say karet by the sister? To say it in karet and not in malkut. Ravashi comes and he says, even if you want to say it's going to be the rabbis, what is the ikar? The ikar, is that going to be right here, meaning in this world, or bidei shamayim? So Amar Rav, halacha is like Rabbi Chanina and Gamliel, that chayve kritut, that they get lashes, they become patur from karet. That's halacha. So says the Gemara, Amar of Yosef, says of Yosef, Man salik le'ela ve'ata ve'aman. Who is the one that went up to Shamayim and told us what halacha is? How do we know what halacha is? Somebody went up to Shamayim and they checked, right? So he says, right? Elmaleh Abaye, so says Abaye, he says, Ela rather, Hada Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. That which Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi says, Shelosha devarim asu bedin shel mata. Iskimu bedin shel mala al yadam. There are 3 things that the bedin shel mata did, and the bedin shel mala agreed to them. Man salik le'ela, right? Who is the one that went up? Ela rather krai kadashinam. They were doresh psukim. Hachanami so to hear, meaning it wasn't somebody went upstairs. They checked the psak upstairs, and then they came back down and they told us the psak. They were doresh psukim, and once they were doresh psukim, that's how they knew how the psak is supposed to be. So Gufa says the Amar Yosef Levi, right? He says shlosha devarim asu bedin shel mata. There were 3 things that bedin shel mata that came and they did, right? V'iskimu bedin shel mala al yadam. What are the 3 things? Number 1, Mikra Megillah. The fact that we read the Megillah on Purim, bedin shel mata in Surim, not bedin shel mala. It's not written anywhere in the right. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu agreed. Number 2, Shelat Shalom b'Shem Hashem. Right? The fact that we're allowed to come and say, right, Yasim Hashem Alecha Shalom, or to say the name of Hashem, right? Yivarecha Hashem, right? The Hashem Yimachem, the concept of placing the name of Hashem on another person. That's Shelat Shalom. That was the Bedin Shel Mala, they agree with it, meaning it's not considered Shem Shamayim Levatala. And number 3, Havat Maaser. The takanot that the Chachamim instituted to do with Trumot U'Masrot, that they're going to bring it to the Leshakot in order to prepare them in the Bet HaMikdash and all those things, even though Midin Torah, the Baalim are going to be Zocheh in their Chelek to any Kohen and Levi that they want, and the Kohanim also, they're going to be coming, they're going to divide the Maaser, Rishon to the Leviim and everything, Midin Torah, Ura'i Leviim Milvad. He says they instituted that they're going to separate the Trumot U'Masrot also from all the other Perot HaIlan and Makkot. That in itself was also from the Bedin Shel Mata. Because he says that, meaning Mitzad the Torah, it's only Dagan, and not the other Perot HaIlan and Kitniot and Yerakot and all. And we said no, it's on everything. So that also Bedin Shel Mala, they agreed to Bedin Shel Mata. Yeah, Rabbi Shiu. So he says Mikra Megillah. How do we know? Dichtiv, as it says in the pasuk, Kimu v'kiblu hayedim, Kimu lemala, ma shekiblu lemata. So therefore, above they agreed to that which they already did down below. Shelat Shalom. How do we know? Dichtiv in Boaz. They learn from Boaz. הוא בא מבית לחם, ויאמר כל זה, השם עמכם, ואומר, השם עמך גיבור החיים. מה ואומר? Why do you need the pasuk? Echita, and you're going to tell me Boaz, who David he did it on his own accord. ומשמעיה לא הסכים על ידו, and they didn't agree to him. תשמע, it says in the pasuk, ואומר, השם עמך גיבור החיים. So you see from Min Hashamayim, they actually agreed to it. Because also that's what happened, that the Malach also called, right, Shalom to Gidon, and the same thing. Havat Maaser, how do we know? You're going to bring all the Maaser to the Bet HaMikdash. You're going to have the food for the Kohanim and Levim in the Bet HaMikdash. And you're going to test me on this. Aman Hashem Tzavakot. If you're not going to open up the gates of the heaven in order to give you beracha, ad belidai. My ad belidai. Amar Rav, ad shivlu siftotechem ilomad dai. Until mamash your time, they're going to come and start saying dai. No, there's another places as well. Yeah, we saw this already. We saw it in a few different places. He says over here, Tet, it says that we learned this in Ta'anit already. But where does it say here? Ta'anit, Aftet Amud Aleph, Kavbet Amud Bet, Shabbat Lamed Bet Amud Bet, Vayin Sham. There's other places as well. We said it. Yeah. No, it's not the Makkot. There's a lot of places. Okay? Next, Amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, Bishlosha Mekomot Hofia Ruach HaKodesh. In 3 different places, Ruach HaKodesh was at the time, right, in order to show the tzidkut of a tzaddik. Number 1, in Bedin Shel Shem Ben Noach. Yeah, he comes and he says, okay, it's going to be brought down later on. Right, he was actually niftar already, but they wanted to continue to do with the children. But one of them has to do with Shem Ben Noach. Number 2, Bedin Shel Shemuel Aramati, Shemuel Hanavi. And number 3, in the Bedin of Shlomo Melech. Bedin Shel Shem, how do we know what happened during the Bedin Shel Shem? He says, Vayaker Yehuda vayomer tzedakah mimeni. Right, Yehuda recognized and he said, tzedakah, right, mimeni, she's pregnant from me. Menayada. How does Yehuda know that she's pregnant from him? He says, right, Dilma ki echid azal ihu legaba, azadam yinish achrin legaba. Meaning, just like he went and he slept with her, maybe there were other men. Can you test fatherhood? Especially then, right? She was huh? There does exist such a thing. We spoke about it once, right? About the bones and everything. But 1 second, right? But the blood and bones. We spoke about it once, right? Or of Nisim Gaon. I'm talking about 1,000 years ago. Not from the time you done thing, but more than 1,000 years ago, there did exist such a thing, right? Parental test, right? But it was something else. Does the blood be absorbed in the bones of? So it's only if he comes from the father, it'll be absorbed the blood in the bones of the father. If it's not. But again, that's something else. That's sort of Nisim Gaon. We gave an entire shiur on that, right? But and DNA and everything. That was the shiur. So, but the question though is that maybe somebody else went with her as well. So Yatsa Bat Kol. There was a Bat Kol that came out. V'amra mimeni yatsu kirushim. It came from me. Meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one coming and saying, all malchut is everything, the mlachim, everything, it's coming from me. So therefore, that was the first time the Ruach HaKodesh came to come and to cleanse, right, in the Bedin of Shem Ben Noach. Yeah, again, it's not really Shem Ben Noach because he already passed away, obviously. But according to what we learned, that she came from Shem Ben Noach, because she was about Kohen Shezindah, right? That's why he wanted to give her a burning, right? Because Shem Ben Noach was a Kohen Le'Elyon. Okay, so he says, "Yatsa bat kol v'amra imeni yatsu kirushim." Next, Bedin Shel Shemuel. What does it mean now? Bedin Shel Shemuel. Tichtiv Irani. Right? What does that mean? He comes and he went to Klal Yisrael and he says, Irani, Anubi neged Hashem v'neged Mashicho. Right? This is before Shaul was anointed. He says, Et shor mi lakachti. Whose shore did I take? Yomru, they said, Lo ashaktanu v'lo ratzotanu v'yomer alehem ed Hashem v'ed Mashicho. Right? That means Hashem is my witness. Right? The what? Ki lo metzatem biyadi me'oma. I didn't take anything. V'yomer ed. V'yomer v'yomru. What do you mean v'yomer? It's just a v'yomru. Hashem said, I'm the Ed. By the way, this is after Shmuel Hanavi was 40 years. Remember, he was 40 years the prophet. He was 40 years the leader over of Klal Yisrael. And this is exactly what happened. So from here, we actually learn, right, that this is the importance. So this actually happened. You know that there was a Jew, Sir Joshua Hassan, that he was, I think, like prime minister, I don't know what, for how many years, right? We're talking about many, many years in Gibraltar. And he actually said this pasuk of Shmuel Hanavi, meaning showing that if a person is going to be in power and he didn't benefit from anybody. So he says, Bevedin Dino Shel Shlomo, where do we see it? Also it says, Vayomer, ויען המלך ויאמר תנו לה את הילוד החי והמלט ויתו, כי עמו. Right? Shlomo Melech comes. You remember this is a famous case where there were two women that they gave birth. There were two babies, and one baby died, and then they cut him in half. So all of a sudden he comes and he says, after he went and he said, just cut him in half. One of the mothers said, no, don't cut it, just give it to her. So what happened? He went and he said, split the baby. But the one woman said, don't split the baby, just give it to the other one. So that's the mother. So he went and he said, Menayada, how did he know? Maybe she was doing harama. Maybe she was smart. Maybe she realized if she says that, ki'ilu that she's going to be giving it to her. So yetza bat kol, right? Ve'amra imo. The bat kol came and said she's the mother. It wasn't just him. He said it, but then a bat kol came to prove that he was correct. So Amar Rava comes and he says, Mimai, how do you know that the bat kol was machriya in all these cases? Dilma Yehuda, Kevin the Chashiv Yarchev Yome, Vitrame. Right? The Chazina, Machsakina, the Lo Chazan, Machsakina. He said, listen, maybe by Yehuda and Tamar, whatever we see with our eyes, we see. Whatever we don't see, we don't see. And we made a simple calculation. We said, listen, when did it occur? This in the state. What's going on? When is she pregnant? So according to what's going on, fine. But he's saying, but we have like kilo chazaka, that whatever you see, no, that's what we're asking. We're asking, maybe there was no bat kol. Maybe it was just like the way of what we were trying to come, right? And again, he's saying according to right now. So he says, whatever we don't see, we don't see. Shmuel, the same thing. Maybe all of the Ibn Yisrael are saying it. It says Yisrael Nosha. Doesn't say Noshaim. So sometimes, even though it's written in Lashon Yachid, it really is going on the Rabbim. So therefore, it's not a proof that it was the Bat Kol that said that. Maybe it was Bemet, all of Ibn Yisrael. They said, yeah, 100%. Shlomo Nami, right? Says Shlomo Melech also. You know why he knew? Because he realized that this woman was the one that had mercy on the child. The other one didn't. So that's how he knew who was the mother. So says the Gemara, you're right. Ela Gemara. It's a Kabbalah. Meaning that this is actually a Masoret, right? That they have Dora Chador, but this is Ruach HaKodesh in these three cases. It's a Masoret. Meaning, because if I wanted with Svarot, I could come and I could say, listen, there's no Svara, right? He says, no, you're right. It's a tradition. Meaning you went from student to rabbi, rabbi, going on all the way. That these three cases, everything happened with Ruach HaKodesh. Tarash Rabbi Simlai says Rabbi Simlai, Shesh Meot u'Shlosh mitzvot ne'emru leMoshe. Do you know there were 613 mitzvot that were given to Moshe Rabbeinu? 365 lavim. You have 365 negative, 248 positive. 365 negative, just like the sun. Right? 248 to the positive, which is like the moon. Yes, right? Which is like the moon, which are the organs. So Amar Rabbi Menuna says, Micah, what is the pasuk? Torah tzivla Moshe, Moshe kilat Yaakov. Torah begamatria. What is the gematria of Torah? Shit mia v'chadsre hava. It's 611. V'anochi v'lo yeh mipi agvura shemanu. We heard it from Hashem. Meaning, what's the numerical value of Torah? Tav, 400. Right? Vav, 6. Resh, 200. That's 606. Hey, 5. 611. How do you have 611? You have 613. It says no. Torah tzivalanu Moshe. Moshe taught us Torah mitzvot. 611 mitzvot. Who was the other two? Hashem. Anochi Hashem Elokecha v'lo yelecha. That's why it's 613. Right? That's Torah tzivalanu Moshe. So that's how you get to the mitzvot.